So we have the three layers. The first one is the speculative one, which is the PAL. Then we have the HPAL, the holy PAL, which is staking. And then we have the locked version. The question today, and I think that's the biggest topic we should have, and I see a lot of little anonymous little hands, is about the chest. How do we create value for the stakeholders and for the protocol with the chest? So we just want to explain the basic version, and then we're going to take question and try to find that to basically jam around this idea. The first thing is that's important is that tokenomics are useless if they don't create a flywheel around actual product use. I'll give you an example, a useful example. That's going to be VCRV, of course, and that when you have VCRV, you are incentivized to keep on locking more VCRV to maximize your boost, to maximize your access to the gauge, depending on who you are, what type of stakeholder, if you're a farmer, if you're a protocol, etc. And that's the idea. And all of this is creating use case, because if you want to boost, you have to provide liquidity to the protocol. And if you want to basically control the gauge, you're basically going to push more people to provide liquidity. And the more liquidity there is, the more people go on curve, swap on curve, because it's going to be the best place to avoid slippage. So that's the basic idea of curve. What we wanted to do with Paladin was enable something that would push more people to use the protocol. So we thought of it this way. Today, Paladin is going to be essentially about governance, people who care about participating in governance. So if we created something that aligned the people who wanted to participate in governance with us, that would be optimal. This means that we wanted to build a locking system around people who want to govern one Paladin and govern other protocols. So how do we maximize the number of people that are going to do this? First, we offer them an access to governance tools. So what do these people want? Well, everyone wants money, right? But the second thing they would want is actual voting power. So our idea was, how do we create a system that's going to give them free voting power, or as cheap as possible? There's two design choices. Either we could just give them free reign over all of the unused assets, but this is dangerous because it would break the neutrality of the project. Or what we could do is that we could say, the money we're making in the treasury, you can reuse it directly to participate in governance. And you're using this through using our own products. So that's the basic idea. So it means that if we work this way, the only people who are going to lock are going to be people who either want to govern Paladin or who are governing other products. So in a sense, we're putting the right people around the table and we're pushing them to use our protocol. That's the basic idea of what we've been trying to do with the chest. So perhaps the chest is not adapted. There are other things to do. I've been talking with a few of you guys, and one of the concerns was that this was basically built on a monthly basis, and that if you were not using or not selling your voting power, you couldn't really accumulate it. So there's a few ideas we can to accumulate it, but I wanted to hear from you guys if this was clear and if you had other objections or questions. Anyone wants to take the mic?
Sure, I can go if no one else wants to go first. So hey everyone. So yeah, on the tokenomic, I really like what you proposed, and I'm really aligned with most of it. The only point where I had a disagreement, and I shared it on the forum, was that instead of spending all of the revenues that are earned in the chest to be used in the project, it would be like to only allow to spend half, and the other half would be since most of the fees will be like in governance tokens. So we will be earning CRV, we will be earning AV and all that. So the idea would be like to get all the tokens, half of the token that are going to the chest, to be locked and to be used in governance. And that would allow people to basically use the voting rights for free. So the voting rights could be used in the first idea on the protocol, so to be neutral. If no one wants to use it, then it could be used for free by HPAL lockers, and yeah, it could be decided on with a vote. And so and only another idea would be that if half of the fees generated by the chest are held in the chest, this is creating some kind of backing for the PAL, because the funds are actually staying in the chest. Like CRV will be locked, AV will be staked, or maybe locked in the future. I don't know. And so we can use part of this uh, without spending everything, and so this will help growing the chest over time, I think.
Okay,
Not
this
sure
is
if it works.
no. At least for me, it's clear. If anyone has questions, you can write them or ask them now. Is there a way for people to raise their hands? I'm not sure. So I actually thought a lot about this because I disagreed with this, and some people in the core team, who, if they want to talk, are free to do so, actually agreed with. So I don't know if anyone wants to talk. If so, you can unmute your mic. But if you don't, I actually have a solution in mind for this. So feel free. Feel free. I will. Yeah. I wanted to express it. So what you're talking about looks a bit like what we have seen with the Olympus wave, in the sense that it looks a bit, for example, like Redacted or what Lobbyist did. In the sense, accumulating governance token and creating some kind of backing price. I think that's very interesting. And the reason why I wasn't on board with it was that having actual governance power inside of the protocol that's accessible is going to attract a different kind of person than the actual governors. And I think that could undermine the process. So my thought was, how could we internalize these benefits that you mentioned while externalizing the consequences? And my current thought about it is that we could create some kind of sister DAO that would basically be dedicated to accumulating governance token for the sake of Paladin and using them inside of this protocol and generate revenue by doing it. So this would create two things. That, of course, Paladin would own a substantial amount of the actual governance token of this sister DAO. This sister slash sub DAO that we would incubate would basically you'd have the choice at each month to basically bond your chest rights into it. And what you would do is that you would mint governance tokens, the governance token of this sister DAO, and we would basically transfer the governance token to this sister DAO. And what they're going to do is that they're going to deposit it into the different Paladin dApps and build other complex strategies on top of it and accumulate revenue by doing so. And at any time, you could basically burn the bond, the governance token, and get back the chest rights. So that could be something we do. It would allow to do two things. First, by actually having the DAO possess a certain amount of the governance token of this DAO, it would enable it to have a backing price. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it would allow anyone who has locked tokens to accumulate chest rights if they choose not to sell or not to use them, and then at some point burn the chest rights and basically access the whole compounded governance power. And it would also provide floor liquidity for the Paladin dApps. So do you think this could answer what you were talking about, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I think so. Just to be sure I understood, so this is really interesting. And so the part of the fees would be sent from the chest to Sister DAO. That's
Yeah,
right.
every
Okay.
user could choose between using the power this specific month, selling it, basically bonding it.
Okay. Okay. And if he bonds it, what happens exactly?
You get a governance token that represents what you just bonded inside of the other DAO, of in the sister DAO. So it's you can think of it as if it was redacted, because it's something in the same logic in terms of build, and basically you're bonding your chest right and against minting the governance token of let's call this thing, I don't know, Palace. You're minting a Palace token, and the Palace token just represents the share that you deposited into the protocol.
Okay, and then the governance token on the sister DAO can allow you to like use the thing that you bonded with the governance token. Is that right? Like,
Uh,
uh,
no, it represents what's inside of the protocol. It represents the governance token. So what you do, as I mentioned, is that you can burn them and then get back the chest rights that auto-compounded because the number of governance token inside the group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think we will need to discuss it a bit more. Maybe not. Yeah, I think we can do it next actually. But yeah, maybe with a design or a Figma would be amazing. But yeah, I think I get the idea.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
There's I mean, maybe this is a point worth like exploring right now. Is like if there's any point where there's like accessible governance power for, let's say, PAL holders or palace holders, whoever. How do we kind of how do you mediate disputes for that power? Like, let's say, there's two parties that want to use the voting power in two different ways, right? How can we how can you manage that? Like, if right now,
I don't think it needs to be winner take all. I mean, I think if I think we could have two separate votes. You know, we could vote or net out against each other.
mm-hmm.
Like if we're just if we're supposed to be a governance protocol, right? Then we need to remain neutral, but that doesn't mean that the members need to remain neutral. So if the members want to utilize the treasury assets to go and influence some governance decision, and the members disagree, then their proportion of Paladin should reflect that. Like they're 1-to-1, so to speak, or like pro rata rights.
Yeah, that's what Convex is doing, right? So Convex became so big, and they didn't want to become a central influence into Curve. So what Curve did is that they introduced fractional voting, and this basically allows Convex to vote, for example, in the gauge, depending on the votes of what their contributors want. The problem with this right now is that fractional voting is extremely expensive on mainnet.
Right, of course. The idea, though, is that we want to preserve the economic upside of what we think is a good model, a good governance model, and something that we can help with. So I wouldn't prioritize being able to use the governance at this point. I would honestly even say I kind of like this idea of like a side DAO.
Yeah. So that's I don't know if you guys know. So there's two big DAOs that did governance in a very interesting matter. You have Redacted, which is doing very well, and you have Lobis, who shortly ended because of disagreements between the core team and the founders. In my mind, we kind of have an opportunity to build kind of a successor to Lobis that we could incubate. And the idea would be that I don't know who in our community could help us build this. It would be some kind of thing that existed like Lobis, but more aligned with Paladin in the sense that, for example, it would prioritize right now two tokens, which would be Aave and Curve, which are the biggest one we're using. And it would, for example, I don't know if it could lock the VCRV, we have to rethink the mechanism a bit. But it could use them to create revenue inside of Paladin and Warden. And this would allow the treasury to grow, and we could build things on top of it. But it would be entirely independent, right? It's just that because of incubating, because of starting the idea, and we could even provide funds at the beginning, Paladin would have a certain percentage of the governance token that would be either locked or vested, and this would mean that the protocol would have some kind of floor value, simply because there's this sister DAO that has value. And on the other side, it would also mean that it creates a synergetic thing where we have some kind of floor providing. Because if we look at Quest today, one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is that, unlike Votium, we need to attract VCRV holders to vote for us. So today, Votium is very passive. There's like 40 million VLCVLX that are deposited. So it's around over, I think, half of what the circulating supply is. And people don't have anything to do. With Quest, we're going to have to find the VCRV holders who are interested, at least at the beginning, to participate. So the idea is that if we already have some kind of floor VCRV amount of level we can provide, we're always sure we're going to be able to provide a certain part of the demand, hence create a certain floor revenue for us. So I think there's a huge incentive for us to have a sister DAO that could help us do that. And to be perfectly honest, we intended to do something like this with lobbies. This never happened. That's totally okay. We can just build it ourselves.
Hey Fige, real quick before we dive down that hole. I mean, I'm all on board for like building out the ecosystem. Regarding the efficiency of like the fractionalized voting, what if instead of fractionalized voting, you simply netted out typically in any of these proposals, you wouldn't have a like, okay, so you have a binary yes or no. Do we do this decision or do we abstain, right? So I guess there's three choices. And what if you let the DAO vote and then instead of using all of your voting power and fractionalizing it and sending it directly where it needs to go, you simply use the amount that would change the outcome. So like if you had X for vote A and Y for vote B and X was greater than Y, then you would vote X minus Y in favor of vote A.
Koga, you want to take this? Might be a bit more up your alley.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was trying to answer to Didi Moon on the text channels.
Yeah, I can rehash it. So from a voting or from a gas efficiency standpoint, right? If fractionalized voting via comebacks is very gas heavy, what if instead of fractionalized voting, we just netted out the outcome on our end before voting? So, if you have X amount of people or X amount of votes for vote A, Y amount of votes for vote B, and X exceeds Y, then you would just do whatever X minus Y is for vote A, rather than fractionalizing it and voting both outcomes equally.
Well, that depends on how we plan to handle the voting power, because that will need some, like, you cannot do that while the vote is active, because even if you want to delegate just the exact amount, that's the difference. Well, it's not going to be counted on the vote because snapshot already taken.
Oh, that's interesting.
But like it gotta depend. Like either does either being the Paladin DAO or the sister DAO wants to allow users to choose what to vote to, or do you want to use that in a way where the sister DAO could just like also run that voting power through the Paladin products, because it's also on the best interest to have those generating more yield and get that yield from that voting power. So you are on token as VCRV, where you can have voting power in any way they are locked. Well, you can have those fractional votes on top of it and reflect it. And on the other ones, well, as long as they are product that can be used inside Paladin pools and not wardens, well, you could have those used literally in the pool, and also depending on if like they want to have a vote and using chest rights, you could have like a cheap one to get the boosted voting power because the DIO decided to vote, or just withdraw the like a given amount before the vote and say like, okay, we're gonna vote with that amount. Do we vote yes or no? Or, you could have like more playground instead of just considering your whole voting power as one big order, but instead like just increase the depth of the Paladin pool and get something more interesting and really like turn into the whole like arm dealer like standpoint in the votes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Back to you, Figa.
Yep. So that was the succession we had about Didi's idea. So to be honest, we talked a bit with him beforehand, so that's why we had the solution come up. So now, guys, if any of you have any question, we can even pull up like the article if it's a bit easier than the Figma. I apologize, but for those of you who jam around tokenomics and a bit of complex design, Figma is really, really useful to do so. And it's also going to allow us to have a trace of what the discussions we had. Is there anything else you guys think that should be changed or that seemed weird, or any idea that you guys think we could implement? Just something to take into account. is that, and that's not the case of a lot of protocols, we've taken quite a lot of time internally, but also with you guys, to build up some novel mechanisms in governance. So, for example, we inspired ourselves from the locking, but outside of that, like everything is original. So it means that there's always some kind of risk, and that we have to be careful with the consequences of it. So it's about iterating. It's going to be a lot about iterating. And while we're very comfortable with the three-tiered structure we have, the rest is going to be a lot about finding out what works.
I see some conversation going on in the community AMA chat.
One of the questions I had that I think DY brought up, but I forget if there was ever a response to it, was, is there going to be a way to kind of auto boost the Paladin, the HPAL, so that it's not like we don't have a convex come out of it?
I don't think
Well,
it's actually. Go ahead.
just quickly, because I also put it in the forum. I don't know if it was seen by everyone, but what came also from the Code Arena contest we did was, yeah, we should have a whitelist built on top of the HPAL. So from the start, no contract can lock the HPAL. They can only just take and get HPAL to put it in pools, put it in AMMs and whatnot. But to have something similar to convex to emerge on the locked HPAL, they should have to go through our governance and explain the why and the how, and allowing us to have, as the governance, to have a control over what they could try to do, and in case they what they promised wasn't matched by what they built, or if they turn into something that's like wrong for what the governance, and governance decided to like remove their whitelist access, well, they'll be able to unlock later at the end of their log, but they won't be allowed to lock anymore HPAL
Oh,
to
I
stop
guess what
the
I'm
increase.
talking about is, could we just have a relock function rather than?
There's a relock. You can
Okay.
like basically when you lock, you say like, okay, I want that duration, that amount. You can just increase the amount without changing the lock duration. So let's say you already set for 1 year and you got like 100 pound more from whatever, like a bounty or whatnot, and you want to lock them, and they'll not restart your lock and all, but you can also go through the simple lock method, and then the amount in your lock will increase, and the lock will start again with the new duration you gave. You cannot reduce the amount of the duration, but you can always increase them. So if you have a year for one lock and maybe you are 2 months in, and if you're like, okay, I need more like yield on my HPAL, I want the maximum boost and whatever, or depending on the new functionalities would be on top of HPAL. Well, you can say, okay, I have the same amount, but I want to relock it and lock it for 2 years, so I'm getting like the max system. And yeah, if then with the whitelist we allow some type of convex system to build on top of it, they'll be able to whatever the time lock the full balance for max duration and do it again at each time they have like an interaction. So whether being it a convex system, a liquid locker from stake DAO, whatever that type of system, like it will be possible.
Okay, that was interesting. But the idea is that it's going to drive utility towards the token. And the more, I wouldn't say the more utility we drive, but the more value people get from this utility, the more interesting the token is going to get. Right now, the token, well, we haven't released much on the token utility. It's going to scale quite quickly in the next few months. So we're going to need to provide more liquidity to access to the token, but we're also going to have this work of actually building this utility and showing to the people how it works. So I think a very big part in all of this is around the protocol on liquidity and showing how powerful our dApps are and how powerful our token is. And the more obvious this is going to become, the more traction the products are going to get, and the more value this is going to get for the HVAL. So there's a really powerful flywheel. as we mentioned, the sister DAO idea is something we've been experimenting and talking about a lot internally, because we know there's a ton of things we'd like to build around Paladin that we will never have time to do so. So our idea is, how do we incentivize people to build around us? We don't have the right answer yet. First, we want to start by putting up the business development, the marketing, and the treasury working groups. And once we have these, we'll need live conversations about it. But that's the general focus around the tokenomics. That's the main topic today. So if you look at the flowchart, there's one or two parts that we haven't talked a lot. So you have two boosts right now, which is interesting. You have the first boost, which is going to be live at the get-go, so in a few weeks or even days. That's going to be about emissions for the first 2 years of people who are locking. So it's boosted by X2 if you lock, by X6 if you lock for 2 years. So people who are locking on the long term and who are relocking are going to be the people who reap the most rewards from this program, right? And then there's another boost that we will put on later on, because we are aware that if you build a locking system, you should have programmatic emissions. So what we're going to do is that the product liquidity mining are going to be able to be boosted in a few months. This is not going to be live yet, but that's the medium-term goal of what we want to do. And most of the emissions, if not almost all, will happen through this method. So they will govern through the token. I'm sorry, the tokenomics in general are a bit complex, so you are free to use and check the files after this call. Something that is important to understand that we liked a lot in the curve design is that there were different levels of complexity, which meant that depending on the time you had to concentrate and to learn about the protocol, the complexity of your the skill set you had, you could position yourself at different layers. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has a question. Even if it's about clarification, guys, the goal of this talk is really to hear your thoughts.
I see Miyaki typing. And yeah, again, guys, you're all able to come up on mic.
No one else? No questions? It's important that you get them out now, especially because I see quite a lot of people are listening to. So we talked a lot about this internally. Tom, is there anything else you would like to mention on this on the tokenomics that I maybe forgot to mention, or even your opinion, to be honest?
I'm just reading what Koga wrote, actually.
Yeah. So what Koga is mentioning, and as you can realize from the discussion, he's the brain behind our most of our mechanics. Is that we could probably have dynamic fees, the equilibrium. So what you're seeing in the flowchart is that today we're planning on having half of the revenue that are going to the chest rights and half going to the treasury. We can probably accelerate on this and give more and more to the chest, because the idea is going to be to maximize the value. By the way, something I didn't mention, but if some of you think there is a better name than the chest, please feel free to do so. We liked it and we thought it was on point with the lore, but maybe there's something else that we missed. So if
There's
you have
definitely
ideas,
there's definitely a better name. We'll find it.
yeah, because the frustration we had is that we spend a lot of time finding the right mechanism. We're super satisfied what we had in the end, because we think on the long term it can create extreme value for the protocol. But we felt that we weren't explaining, educating right on what we wanted to do on the long term with this. And I think that was something that was mentioned by one of the comments in here, is that this is a hyper flexible system, right? So we can plug in and plug out things. And that's something that's hyper powerful, because we have a few other dApps that we would like to release in the coming years. Yeah, it takes time to develop. And the way this token tokenomics are designed is that we will be able to very rapidly plug in into the dApps, and they're just going to create another engine that's going to add value for the tokenomics. And that's the idea, is that even if we're not here anymore, anyone can create a dApp and plug in and create high value for the token very quickly. And extract value from it too.
Jake Lynch just suggested the recall a hyperbolic chamber. No, I'm not sure about that. I mean, we're looking for something thematic, but yeah, guys, if you have any better ideas for the chest, again, this is open forum. Anytime you can, come up with an idea, you're free to share it.
Yeah, we're too, but we've come to realize something, and most projects in crypto, they mature very fast in terms of adoption, in terms of use and volume, and they have to trail back in terms of mechanics and in terms of governance system. Right now, we have a very stable growth between what we're growing in terms of community, what we're growing in terms of revenue, and what we're growing in terms of mechanics. So I think I would argue that today Paladin is a bit more long-term than most DeFi plays, but that's also normal because we're half between DeFi and governance, right? So yeah, to be honest, it's all going to be about experimentation and iteration. And there's probably a lot of new systems that are going to appear. We're just going to have to keep up to date to find the best mechanism and to adapt. And well, in the sense they don't really lose. I'm saying that Miyake is saying that if we create something like Pal loses power and influence. In the sense they don't, because the Palace token is basically a subsidiary of Pal. No, Jake, Palace means it's the goddess of strategy. It's Athena Palace, so it's a reference to one of one of the NFTs that was made in the. But yeah, the palace is on theme too. We can discuss about this, but I think you were mentioning about the name of the chest, and we're talking about the sister DAO. But I think that what's interesting is that if any of you wants to see the NFT, that's the one. The point that we should be very careful on is that we're going to have one focus. It's going to be about attracting revenue, and once we start generating consequential revenue, it's going to be about how we redistribute it. So the chest or the palace is this answer to redistribution. Why it's not making lose value to PAL is that palace is basically a representation. The token be a representation of the HPAL rights to the chest. That's it. So anyone could buy palace, burn them, and access to what's been compiled in the chest. Or likewise, if you want to actually not use your current rights, you can burn them and earn palace. So the palace supply is going to be dynamic depending on how much tokens there are. And external people can come in and just bond Aave or CRV inside of Palace. And that's the idea. And so there's a market opportunity where if the price of Palace is too low, people can just buy it, burn it, and use the chest right. And on the other way around, maybe people could use the chest rights and mint the Palace token and then sell it on the market. So it creates another market opportunity.
Stefan? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed Stefan's question about did you consider a locked HPAL? Yes, we have. It's something. So if you look on my Twitter thread, I've been super adamant in the sense that we should be able to give governance power to lock tokens, to LP tokens. So we're exploring this. This is going to be very important as we're going to open LPing and we're going to encourage people to LP with us on Curve and Bouncer. We're just exploring the technical capacities to do so. It's something that we have to do on the medium pro. It's something we will have to do. I'm not just considering it. It's more going to be about technical details than actually doing it. And the other thing that's a bit more complicated is that the actual number of PAL tokens included in LP tokens depend on price swings. So it also means that we're going to have it also means different implementations, and it's also harder to put online on chain. I see Jake is learning French to become more aligned with Paladin. But so for what we mentioned, we don't have a fixed timeline, and you guys know it's bad to actually have timelines in crypto. We would like to have something like the chess live by this summer. We'll see if that's possible. It's going to depend on the technical hurdles, and it's going to depend also on the audit schedule if we can get something in. As you can see, Koga and timelines, and he's right, are bad. For the sister DAO, we could probably start a bit sooner. It's going to depend on who we work with, how much it costs us or the DAO, and yeah, who's ready to work with us on that. So if you are interested, please DM me or put it in the tab, and we're going to build something around that, guys. We just have to find the right way to align everything correctly. Yep. And yeah, it does sound fancier than one token. Anything else, guys? Are there any other questions about the tokenomics or even about what we just mentioned?
Still got some more people typing. I think Didi wants to follow up, and possibly Jake as well. I'm not sure if just want to write something funny.
No, I wasn't saying to Stefan. But yeah, coming back on the question you asked earlier, should we change the name of the chest? That's not the most important, I think. But maybe we should reconsider about the HPAL to come back to a more known, free ticker or something. What do you think? I know you added HB because you didn't want it to add VEPAL or something, but maybe it's too different from the other tokenomic known right now. What do you think?
Well, HPAL is the stake version, and then we could have VHPAL. It is different, so we didn't want to use the same name. To be honest, I don't really care. Maybe it's about a bit more clarity because V systems have a very specific way of functioning, and we're not using it. For example, the number of V token you have decreases with time. We didn't want to do that with Paladin for two reasons. And the first one being that because when you have a decreasing amount, and we've experienced this by building Warden, it is extremely hard to build on top of it. So by not having a decreasing amount of governance token with time, we're enabling a lot of people to build much more easily on top of our system. I don't know if Koga, you have an opinion on that, or even Tom or anyone else.
Well, quickly, like we didn't want to go with either stake something like stake AV or V or something like locked or vote locked anything because we're trying to do something new in terms of tokenomics. Well, it's more of a mashup of everything like that we liked and things that we wanted to try. But yeah, basically the contracts does both. Like you stake and lock in the same contract. So you just have your HPAL balance, and then when you lock, you have a balance that says that's the amount available and the amount locked. And so since the token represent both those system, we wanted to have like a new name. So we were like with a HPAL for the Holy PAL token, like wanted to play still around the Paladin lore and the whole RPG theme. So yes, yeah, we're not vesting. Well, as Tom said, we are not vote locking really either. Like, yeah, the lock does vote logging, but not only because there will be the chest, there will be like liquidity mining boosts based on your lock and all of the stuff we want to build on top of it. So just trying to find something else and just tumble onto that, and we're like, yeah, okay, that could fit.
Yeah, thanks for the answer. I understand.
Anything else, guys?
So, by the way, it's not to put you guys on the spot, but I see a few guys from Lobbies are here. I would love to have your opinion. Maybe not now. We can talk about it later on about what you think about how these kind of things could work. We can talk about it in the Discord later on, like just through messages. But I think it's interesting to see that we can inspire ourselves from a lot of things that have worked or have not worked. And the question is, how do we make everything revolve around PAL? So you have to think about it this way. Everything we're going to try to design as a core team, but also we should think of as a community, is to PAL. So at some point, it has to give back value to PAL. That's the point of the sister DAO. It's the point of the chest, and it's going to be the point of the dApps through the tokenomics. And if we have a tokenomics model that's hyper composable and that creates the all roads lead to PAL system, I think we're going to have a lot of interesting stuff coming up in terms of valuation for the project.
All right, I see Miyaki typing again. Besides that, I don't see anyone else. Once again, guys, if you want to hop on the mic. Plutus, yes. Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Alrighty, guys. Well, if there are no other questions, let's check here. Discord. All right, so this is being recorded. There will be a video up later because I know there's a lot to take in. And of course, there's the article and the other documentation. So yeah, thanks for joining and thanks for being part of the open forum. And yeah, just stay tuned for the uploaded video and more information to come. Thanks for joining, guys.